All right, tweet number 3 comes from depressed Warriors fan at Warriors in 9. Okay. First move towards contention is to fire Steve Kerr. His time is up here. After he gets fired, then we have our doors open. But firstly, we need to understand that Steve Kerr must go. I'm going to quote tweet this and say, y'all just gave him an extension. You can't just fire him like that.
Fire him. You just gave him money. You just gave him bread. You just gave him the bread, bro. Like,
and then I'm going to have 4 ring emojis. Ring, 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 ring. This dude has 4 rings. Now, that's all I'm going to say to defend Steve Kerr, because this point going forward is going to be nothing but criticism for Steve Kerr. You can't fire the guy. You're stuck with him for a little bit at least. As long as Steph Curry and Draymond Green are around, Steve Kerr's your guy. Deal with it. It is what it is. I do have a problem with how Steve Kerr is managing the personalities of this team and how he's stubborn in not switching up the offense. I don't know what's going on with Jonathan Kuminga, but this little thing back and forth that they have with the media, this back and forth of he's going to start, he's going to come off the bench, he's going to start, he's going to come off the bench, is messing with his head. And basketball, any sports like this, if you don't have your confidence, if you are not comfortable with your role, if you are constantly guessing, what am I supposed to do today to please this coach? It doesn't matter how great of a coach you are or how great of a player you are, that player is going to struggle. Period. We could talk X's and O's until we're blue in the face. I think Jonathan Kuminga right now is going through something with Steve Kerr and the rest of just basketball in general, where he just doesn't know what Steve Kerr wants from him, period. Now, he showed out and had a great game after Steve Kerr people assume, called him out in the media. He came back, had a great game, and showed what he can be. And I do think that he has to play better. Some of it is on him, where it's like you still have to show up and perform. But Steve Kerr can't keep putting him in the lineup, taking him out the lineup, switching your starting lineups consistently, playing 12 guys. There needs to be some type of consistency here. You need some type of set rotation. People need to learn roles. I say this all the time on the dime. The best teams, everyone knows their role. You have an identity, and everybody knows their identity. Right now, the Warriors are just, outside of Draymond and Steph, no one knows what they're supposed to do. Nobody knows what their role is from night to night. Steve Kerr, granted, they do have a deep roster, and I still think they can be very good. I don't think, this is season over for the Warriors, even though they came back down to the pack. I think they do have another run in them. I still think they can be good. But I think Steve Kerr needs to decide on a starting 5 and decide on a bench rotation. Until that happens, this team is going nowhere, period. Podge is having a down year. That's another thing that has to do with this. Can you blame Steve Kerr for that? I don't think so, but I also understand it. You know what I mean? I think so much of this is psychological with the Warriors. And then the X's and O's part is this motion offense, it worked when you had Klay Thompson. It worked when you had Kevin Durant. It worked when you had Draymond Green running things. It worked when you had prime Steph Curry. This team can't run the motion offense. This cannot be the one thing you do with this team, the thing you do most often. It is very cool to run split action and have Steph Curry running around like crazy as a decoy. But your best player can't always be a decoy. Your best player has to be your best player sometimes. Your best player should have the ball in his hands most of the time, especially when you have a roster when you're like, I don't know who our second best scorer is. Maybe it's Kuminga. You don't have the luxury of having Steph Curry always be a decoy. He needs to have the ball in his hands. You need to run pick and roll with your best playmaker. You need to run pick and roll with the best shooter off the dribble. You need to have pick and roll with the person who makes the best decisions on your team, the top 5 player in the league, top 10 all time, Steph Curry. Steve Kerr needs to stop being so stubborn. He doesn't have the same team he used to have. Kuminga can get an easy bucket off split action. You might get an easy bucket for Pods off split action. You might get open threes here and there for this team, and they need to knock down these shots. But also, that's not their strengths. Get Kuminga in the post when he has a mismatch. Give him the ball to go one-on-one when he has a mismatch. This Steve Kerr is, to me, I think he gets a lot of flack, and I think it's unnecessary sometimes because this man did win 4 championships. And you could say whatever you want about Mark Jackson. Steve Kerr took the Warriors from here to here because he let Steph Curry go bananas, and he recognized what he had, and he took the leashes off. Steve Kerr deserves a ton of credit for what the Warriors are. But right now, it's almost like a Mike D'Antoni situation where it's like, I have my philosophy of playing the game, and we're going to stick to that rather than adjusting to your roster. So you can't fire Steve Kerr. You can't do it. You just gave him an extension. But those are my critiques of him. And any Warriors fan watching, by the way, feel free to comment because obviously Kwab and I, we do a whole NBA podcast. I don't watch the Warriors every day, but I have watched enough where these are the conclusions I'm coming to. I think I'm watching a different team every time.
You're watching a different team because it is a different team every time. But there's different factors going on, right? We could talk about like the one thing that's like, okay, Pods, right? Not having a good sophomore year. He was the untouchable guy in the Lauri Markkanen trade. Which
he was
crazy right now, just crazy. But put that to the side. We talk about Draymond and Steph. Draymond had possibly the worst game I've ever in basketball against the Grizzlies, where he was like minus 42, 0 for 0, which
that was
is
one game though.
That's a weird. And then Steph also has gone. There's been like 6 quarters where like Steph hasn't hit a shot. Now, is there a line of thinking? Is that where you're like, is this just a tough stretch, or is this just the team? Because earlier on this year, we're actually on record, because when the Warriors were winning, we're actually on record where we're like, is there a chance this Warriors team could be like dangerous come playoff time? Because they were winning with the deep roster, with like going 12 deep. Everybody was playing. Buddy Hield was more consistent, but apparently somebody made the point, this is the Buddy Hield cycle. Like, Buddy Hield will start the season with hit shots, and then you get to the point, it's like, yo, why is Buddy Hield on the floor? Well, the offseason moves they made we're helping them, but like D'Anthony Melton got hurt, and eventually he became the trade piece for them getting Dennis Schroeder from the Nets, which I don't,
go Nets.
I just, to me, I was like I kind of understand why you make that trade, but also I don't, because Schroeder's best asset is playing pick and roll. That's what he's great at. You don't really have that in terms of like the personnel with the Warriors, and I don't know if they're gonna completely overhaul that for just one player that you're just trading in. I don't think Dennis is the type of player where you overhaul your offense for that. Who else was that? Kyle Anderson was having a great time to start the year, like a great play to start the year. Again, another player I bet the Wolves miss him, like the way the Wolves have been playing now. Like he was playing really well for them last year, but he started off the year really strong for them too. So they've hit like a very inconsistent like bump. And do you look at it and be like, okay, this is what the team is, or is this a tough stretch? Because we can go on and blame. People have been saying they want Steve Kerr fired since like
for 3 years, 4 years now.
I mean,
the championship, bro.
Yeah,
they've been saying that since forever. Steve Kerr's been in the hot seat. I mean, at least with Warriors Twitter.
Yes.
The whole time I've been tweeting about basketball.
Yes, I mean, and to some degree, I get it. Sometimes you're like, this is confusing. Like, I was watching USA basketball. I was like, we might need to fire that guy. But when you look at the team, what is the main issue for the team right now? Because I think
it's roster, first of all. I think so flat out, we said this in the past. I think the Warriors can be dangerous. I think that they have a really good roster right now. Yeah. I think there's tweaks that they need, right? Now, it's hard for me to say to Steve Kerr, hey, stop running so much split action and motion when they really don't have an inside presence, right? Like, you don't have anybody you can kind of give the ball to down. And not like the game works this way anymore, but who could you really work a pick and roll with Steph, where you're like, okay, if I hit him rolling, he's a threat to score more often than not, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can get Trace on a lob. You can get Draymond in the short where he can make a decision with the basketball, right?
Yep.
And maybe even, I don't know how Kuminga is as a roller. Someone who watches the Warriors, let me know. But there's really no one who is just kind of like pick and roll, got you in the pocket. I trust you to hit that jumper. I trust you to take it. They don't have that. So we could talk all we want about Steph running the pick and roll, and my point really is just put the ball in Steph's hands and like have him make things happen. The pick and roll is part of that.
Yeah.
But I still think they need personnel to go with that pick and roll. I think they need an interior defender. someone who can also play with Jackson Davis or back him up or whatnot. I think Jackson Davis needs to play more. Like, there are certain things with their roster that I would tweak, but even without those tweaks, I still think they're really freaking good.
Yeah.
I think the team that we saw in the first half is more of who they are. And I think, Steph is what, like 36 now? Well, how 35? I mean, you're running this offense where he's literally just like running around the perimeter. Like, that's exhausting. Like, he shot, like, I think the other night he had 4 shots in the first half, and he's just
circling around.
And your best, and I get it, like his gravity and all that stuff, it creates open shots for other people, but sometimes it doesn't. And even if it does, he's still your best player. Like, you should still get the ball in his hands, and he still should be taking more shots, period. So I'm not against the motion split action, though. I just don't think it should be the main thing. And I think that Steve Kerr needs to find another way to adjust. And I think that right now with this roster, Kuminga is your number 2. He just is. You need to find actions that work for him. And if that means slowing the ball down, getting it in the post, that's what it means. If it means like having him come off a curl, whatever it means, it can't just be put him in the corner and hope he hits an open 3, right? Like, you have to incorporate him somehow, because all this talk about the Warriors need a number 2, well, if it's not a Klay Thompson type, then how are they going to fit into the offense without you changing it? You got to change the offense anyway. You have to.
Okay, I was going to say, I don't know how long we've been talking about the Warriors just now, and we still haven't mentioned one name.
Who?
Andrew Wiggins.
Look at that.
And
that's a great point.
And it's like,
great point.
We talk about like the inconsistencies of the players on the roster. Just, to me, I feel like they've hit a stretch where a lot of players on the team have a lot of question marks.
Yeah.
Where like you're kind of dealing with that now. It's like, okay, well, like Buddy Hield is one of the best shooters in the league, but he's been inconsistent. Like, you have stretches where he's inconsistent offensively and defensively, so you can't really play him. Pods is, like, in terms of defense, leads the league in taking charges and all this stuff, but he's been pressing and hasn't until like recently, he hasn't really been shooting the ball well. The Kuminga issue, which is becoming, I'm still surprised he's on the team, honestly. When I saw that trade alert pop up, I thought he was like there. I didn't think he was going to the Nets, but I thought he was part of some sort of trade, because I just feel like, yes, they believe in him in terms of his talent, but it's always, like you said before, it feels like it's been a constant back and forth between him, front office, the coaching. He didn't even
and him and Moody too. Like, Kuminga's not the only one.
Moody, like, like, it's just, there's so much. They have a lot of good players on the roster. I'll say that. They have a lot of good players on the roster. I think consistency is an issue. Do I feel like they can figure it out and get right back on track? Yes, because I always say this: if you have Steph, you have a chance.
Yeah, I agree.
It's just what it is. You have Steph, you have a chance. Do they need to make tweaks coaching wise? Yes, they do. Especially now after like the trade, and they probably still need to make another trade. I don't know exactly for what that they could use, but maybe another more veteran leadership, another adult in the room that can help them. Somebody like that can. Don't say Cam Johnson. I saw it.
It was coming.
Don't say Cam Johnson.
Everyone could use Cam Johnson. Everybody could use Cam Johnson.
Everyone can use Cam Johnson. Everyone can use Dorian Finney-Smith. I know. I get it. Cool. Okay. Everyone can use half the Nets roster. Cool.
Right.
You don't have the assets. Like, sorry.
Okay.
Get the assets. You get the players. Like, it is what it is. But yeah, you can use. But it's just like, what do you do? In terms of like making tweaks on this team for it to work out? It can't always be, Kerr fucked up, we gotta fire Kerr.
Facts.
He's not going anywhere. Sorry, like, it's been. And by the way, if he gets fired tomorrow, my bad. I just don't think it's happening. I just don't think it's happening. I just feel like they've been calling for him to get fired for this long, but he's just one of the staples of the organization. Like, it is what it is. Like, to this day, I'm still shocked that Klay's not there. I thought it was going to be a statue of Klay, Steph, Draymond. There probably still will be, but them three, and then like Steve Kerr in the background, like with the calling the play like this part of the. And so I just think they need to make some tweaks. Again, I always say this with the West and how tough it is, because even the lower level teams, you're gonna be in for a dogfight. Like
Yeah.
even a team like that's I guess right now that's in the play in. They're not in the playoffs. They're in the play in. It's like the Spurs,
Yeah.
and they've been winning games. Like you look at some of the lower level teams like the Clippers, the Lakers. Like
Yeah.
you're you're not gonna. It's not an easy game. There's no really any easy games any night. Like you can lose to the Jazz, like like if you don't come prepared. So to me, they just make the tweaks, make the adjustments, and get it right. You're not firing your coach. Like y'all
Yeah,
gotta
no.
let that go.
Yeah, I just think I think Curry needs to stick to his consistent lineup, and these are my guys. These are your roles. Let's work it out. I think they started losing games, and I think he just started to kind of like
Just go
Rubik's
like
Cube it.
yeah. Like let's try this guy.
Woo!